Part 48. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 472. /U0026 NBU defeated Baishan Mo and Nangongwei in the presence of the two great sword immortals, the Emperor, more than a dozen Shushan sword saints, more than a dozen Yanhuang generals, and millions of sword cultivators, as well as many Yanhuang immortal soldiers. /U0026 and now, he collected them casually, and the intact clones returned one by one. All the golden immortal apes regrouped and returned to Wu Yu. /U0026 and bit was these clones that allowed Wu Yu to easily defeat the two geniuses who were said to be rare in the history of Shushan. /U0026 and key is that Wu Yu was once a disciple of Shushan and was expelled from here. If it weren't for Tianji Sword Immortal, Wu Yu might not have survived at that time. /U0026 and at this moment, Wu Yu smiled faintly when facing Qiang's Sword Immortal. This calm smile was his response to Qiang's Sword Immortal. /U0026 and Wu Yu's revenge was successful. /U0026 and at least from today on, when mentioning today's incident, Qiang's Sword Immortal played a foolish role like a joke in this matter. /U0026 and at this moment, no one in the entire Shushan mountain has the shining light that Wu Yu has at this moment. /U0026 and Nangongwei and Baishan Mo have become his stepping stones, and they are dim beside him. /U0026 and Baishan Mo in front of him, his heart is as dead as ashes, struggling to get up from the ground, his face is pale, and his body is convulsed. The gazes of countless people make his inner world collapse at this moment. He lost a battle that he could not lose the most, and was crushed twice in a row. Looking at his current appearance, he is also very pitiful. After all, the residual soul of Qingming Sword Emperor, his greatest support, was destroyed by Wu Yu. /U0026 and Wu Yu was hesitating whether to kill him. Of course, he would not feel pity for Baishan Mo if he lost today, he would be the one who would feel pity. The only hesitation was Nangongwei. If he killed Baishan Mo, she would hate him. Now the relationship is broken, but if they have to hate each other in the future, he thinks it is not worth it. /U0026 and after the victory, looking at Nangongwei again, in his eyes, this girl is like a rebellious, disobedient little sister. Now that she has learned her lesson, she left 2 tear marks. /U0026 and I'm sorry, I'm not as weak as you think. Now that I've won, it may be beyond your expectations. But I don't want to hurt you. Having come this far, I can only hope that you can regain your ambition in the future, start again, and continue to pursue the great way. /U0026 and Wu Yu thought of her young appearance. Now that she was crying bitterly, it was really a bit unbearable. /U0026 and in fact, Qiang Jianxian and others were the most nervous at this time. Nangongwei's participation in the battle had violated the agreement between the two parties. At this time, they were defeated even if they joined forces. If Wu Yu wanted to kill Baishan Mo at this time, they would not be convenient to intercept him. After all, the Emperor was here to ensure fairness for Wu Yu. /U0026 and now seeing that Wu Yu didn't seem to have the intention to kill Baishan Mo, Qiang Jianxian and others were relieved. /U0026 and moreover, after hearing what Wu Yu said, he hoped that Nangongwei could get over this blow, and continue to cultivate immortality without being affected. /U0026 and after hearing this, Nangongwei bit her red lips lightly, and suddenly smiled, looking at Wu Yu with resentment, and said, "Sure enough, after winning, you started to teach me a lesson by relying on your seniority. Now that you have won, you can show off your power, but you have no right to care about my future. It was you who gave up on me in the beginning, so don't pretend to be a good person here now. Today you are just stronger, so you won, but this does not mean that you are right, and it does not mean that you are qualified to care about me in a false way. /U0026 And maybe these words she said after the victory were very harsh to her. After all, she and Baishan Mo were defeated together, so she cared more about the victory or defeat. What Wu Yu said at this time was all false. /U0026 And Ngongwei was excited, and she was indeed very impulsive, and her words were also very harsh. /U0026 And of course, this is also her personality, as hot as a flame, but immature. /U0026 And Wu Yu was stunned after hearing this. He wanted to take this opportunity to talk more with Ngongwei, but it was actually wishful thinking. With her personality, no matter what he said after the defeat, it seemed to be humiliating her. After today, she might regard him as an enemy even more. /U0026 And this was inconsistent with Wu Yu's starting point. /U0026 And therefore, he shook his head. Since she was like a hedgehog, there was no need to say more. /U0026 And however, Ngongwei was obviously much more excited than him. She was too young and had experienced much fewer setbacks in life than Wu Yu, so this great humiliation seemed to have possessed her. She clenched her fists, suddenly bypassed Wu Yu, and appeared beside Baishan Mo. She helped Baishan Mo up, looked at Wu Yu with red eyes, and gritted her teeth and said, "Wu Yu, I admit that you won today, but this is just the beginning. One day, the two of us will defeat you." /U0026 And sometimes, from love to hate, it is just a matter of a moment. /U0026 And this defeat was obviously too much of a blow to Ngongwei, and she was even somewhat incoherent. /U0026 And Wu Yu was too lazy to say more. He shut his mouth. Anyway, it didn't matter in the future, let her do whatever she wanted. /U0026 And was turning around, and suddenly Ngongwei looked at him with hatred, helped Baishan Mo up, and said in public, "From today on, I will form a Taoist partner with Baishan Mo, and we will live and die together from now on. There will be no connection between Wu Yu and me, only hatred. One day, the two of us will defeat you and ascend to heaven together." /U0026 And sometimes the more you love, the more hysterical you will be when you resent. /U0026 And Wu Yu was prepared not to kill Baishan Mo, fearing that she would be too sad and upset to get through this, but when she announced this on the spot, Wu Yu was still angry. /U0026 And turned around suddenly, with golden anger burning in his eyes. /U0026 And Ngongwei's sudden decision made Baishan Mo stunned for a moment. Perhaps happiness came too suddenly. He looked at Ngongwei in astonishment and didn't react for a long time. /U0026 And millions of sword cultivators looked at each other. Most of them were older than Ngongwei. In fact, they knew that Ngongwei was just talking in anger. She was too young, so she always wanted to win at this time. She always thought about how to hurt Wu Yu. /U0026 And but this ending is actually what most people in Xuanhuan want to see. /U0026 And once, they thought it was Wu Yu's interference that prevented the Golden Boy and Jade Girl of Xuanhuan from being together, and they thought Wu Yu was the most despicable clown between the two. /U0026 And now, Wu Yu defeated them and joined forces. He jumped above them. /U0026 And Ngongwei announced at this time, and there was always a feeling of revenge and irritation. /U0026 And it's no wonder that Wu Yu was very angry. His burning eyes burned on Ngongwei, and he said in a deep voice, "Wire, defeat is defeat. Who hasn't tasted the taste of defeat in life? At worst, we can fight again tomorrow. But you must not abuse yourself because of a victory or defeat and make impulsive decisions. Using this method at this time will not hurt me, but will only make me think you are so naive." Don't make a decision that you will regret because of me. U0026 Empathies is his responsibility. U0026 End No matter how much he cuts off the relationship, he doesn't want Nangong Wei to be so willful. U0026 N But she still sneered and said, why are you pretending to be a good person again? Do you think you care about me and know me well? How do you know that I am making an impulsive decision now? Isn't Baishan Mo better than you? He is willing to go through fire and water to do everything for me, but you are so selfish, with only yourself in your eyes, and you are unwilling to kill a demon for me, and you keep saying that it is for your own way. I should have chosen him long ago. U0026 and she is full of thorns now. U0026 and after saying so much, everyone knows that she made this decision in anger. If she had this idea earlier, she would not have been so cold to Baishan Mo. U0026 NB You should calm down. Your impulse now will ruin you, Wu Yu said in a deep voice. U0026 NB How can you have a heart-to-heart communication with someone you don't like? How can you walk hand in hand? Once she embarks on this path, as long as she has the slightest resistance in her heart, she will ruin her future. U0026 NB It's tiring to talk to immature people, especially when all Wu Yu's care at this time will turn into humiliation. U0026 NB At this time, the whole audience was silent, and only Qiang's sword immortal interrupted and said, Wu Yu, what happened to them is my Shushan's business, and it has nothing to do with you. You have won the victory and are now in awe. It's time to leave. U0026 and Wu Yu ignored him. U0026 and It's really embarrassing to be ignored by Wu Yu when talking to one of the 7 immortals of Shushan. U0026 and Wu Yu wanted to see if Nangong Wei could still stop at this point. U0026 and in her eyes, Wu Yu only saw hatred for him, which was particularly intense at this moment. She leaned against Baishan Mo and said word by word, no matter what path I take in my life, it has nothing to do with you. You have already won, so you can get out. By the way, we will go to Xuanhuan Temple in 10 days, but we will never invite you to be there. U0026 Empathy's hatred made her like a madman. The flames in her heart, coupled with Wu Yu's anger, reached a point where she could not be quelled at all. U0026 And bearing this, Wu Yu closed his eyes. U0026 And made a decision. U0026 And when he opened his eyes, a shining golden symbol suddenly appeared in his eyes. The symbol was extremely complex, and it was palpitating as soon as it appeared. At this moment, Baishan Mo, who was supported by Nangong Wei, screamed miserably. In the blink of an eye, he struggled to the ground, his eyes rolled back, and his body was motionless. The great Shushan genius and the great hope of the future Shushan lost his voice and became a corpse. U0026 And under his severe injury, Wu Yu burned his soul with the second level of soul refining with the fiery eyes and golden eyes, making him disappear into ashes and disappear from then on. U0026 And I am afraid that even the Emperor Marshal did not expect Wu Yu's action. It was so simple, direct, and rough. This was his usual style. U0026 And for him, Nangong Wei was willful and naughty, but this did not mean that Wu Yu could not cure her. Now that he was killing Baishan Mo, Wu Yu looked at the pale and bewildered Nangong Wei and said, then you can end up with this corpse. U0026 And at this moment, he did not want to say another word. U0026 And turning around, he rushed into the sky and headed towards the direction of the black warship. U0026 And now, all eyes in the world are on him. Wu Yu's decisiveness and determination in killing Baishan Mo at this time made everyone present deeply realize that compared with Wu Yu, Baishan Mo and Nangang Wei are indeed just two young rebellious and willful children. /U0026NB Wu Yu, the Qiang sword immortal, with red eyes, called him /U003C/C Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 473. Chapter 470. The Seven Immortals arrive. After killing Baishan Mo in Shushan, even if this was the rule of a life and death battle, Wu Yu knew that it would be difficult for the Shushan immortal sect to give up. This is the meaning of accompanying the emperor, otherwise, how could he do this? The emperor commander was prepared earlier than him. When Wu Yu killed Baishan Mo and turned back to rush towards the black warship, the emperor commander suddenly threw an unknown magic weapon at the black warship, or it's a Taoist weapon. Anyway, as soon as Wu Yu saw the thing clearly, it was swallowed instantly. The surroundings were dark and a shocking force made him stay in it obediently, not daring to move. Vaguely, it seemed to be a black ancient bell, which instantly enlarged and swallowed Wu Yu, and then returned to the Emperor Shui's hands in the blink of an eye. After returning to the black warship and the Emperor's side, Wu Yu was released in the darkness. His eyes lit up and he landed on the deck, and the Emperor's treasure disappeared in his hands in the blink of an eye. Swish! The generals of Yanhuang Emperor City subconsciously surrounded Wu Yu, and the mighty and domineering Emperor commander in black armor was standing next to Wu Yu, protecting Wu Yu at this time. He said solemnly, "In the battlefield of life and death, there should be rules for the battle of life and death." You temporarily added an opponent to Wu Yu. You, Shusan, have broken the rules, but Wu Yu didn't care about it. Now Wu Yu has killed you, the genius of Shusan. This is also reasonable. You guys in Shusan are not willing to admit defeat. If this spreads out, it will be a joke. After all, this is a life and death battle proposed by Baishan Mo himself. You should have him fighting to death. For example, we are prepared for Wu Yu to die in battle. People like Emperor Shui would only take advantage of others under the rules. It was obviously impossible to break the rules and take advantage of him, so when Wu Yu took action, he was already ready to protect Wu Yu. Prepare. When Wu Yu stood on the black warship, looking down at the battlefield of life and death and the millions of sword cultivators below, he now saw these countless sword cultivators looking at him with awe. This is the look in which the heart and Taoist heart have been defeated. At least most of the Fandan disciples in the Fanjian domain were dejected and unable to muster the slightest will to resist. Although they were endlessly aggrieved and angry, they did not dare to show it at all. Because what they were facing now was not just Wu Yu, but the Yanhuang Emperor City. He is even a legendary figure like Emperor Shui. Wu Yu glanced at Nangang Wei on the battlefield of life and death in the sea of people. She was sitting on the ground in panic, her head lowered, her black hair hanging down, and her expression could not be seen. Wu Yu sighed. Although he said he stopped her from being impulsive and stupid, her hatred for him would definitely rise to a higher level in the future. He originally wanted to end the relationship, but now it is impossible to understand the relationship. After it turned into hatred, this entanglement became even more unrelenting. It was really unpredictable how Nangang Wei would deal with her in the future. In front of the black warship were the Qiang sword immortal, Tianji sword immortal and more than a dozen Shusan sword saints. Among the Shusan sword saints, such as the Xuanhuan sword saint, they had already shouted to kill Wu Yu to avenge Baishan Mo, and for example, Shenzhenjiao is relatively silent. His attitude should be the same as Tianji sword immortal. Tianji sword immortal and Qiang sword immortal are obviously two extremes. At this time, Qiang sword immortal's eyes were red, and his gaze was piercing coldly. Invisibly, the strength of his Yuan Shen transformation state exploded, and he did not hesitate to confront the Emperor Commander. He was furious and said, "Emperor Commander, Wu Yu is just, Xuanhuan abandoned disciple, do Yanhuang Emperor City really want to take care of this matter? He killed Baishan Mo today, and he has a deep hatred for me, Xuanhuan. No matter what, from now on, I, Xuanhuan Immortal Sect, will regard Wu Yu as a life and death enemy and kill him on sight. Yes. The Xuanhuan Immortal Sect and the Yanhuang Emperor City have been friends for generations, and they are both righteous sects in the Divine Continent. I don't think the Emperor is willing to stand against our Xuanhuan Immortal Sect for the sake of our abandoned disciples. Before the Emperor's commander could reply, the Tianji Sword Immortal beside him said, Qiang, in today's battle, Wu Yu acted according to the agreement, and the victory was fair and above board. We Xuanhuan must recognize it. After all, Baishan Mo himself proposed this agreement. Wu Yu has his own destiny. You are being held captive. Without Baishan Mo, we in Xuanhuan have not lost hope. Everything in the world has its destiny. If Baishan Mo loses, he loses. His skills are not as good as others, and we are not friends in the imperial city. It's embarrassing in front of me. He was optimistic about Wu Yu from the beginning, but he was forced to expel Wu Yu that day. Wu Yu's performance today at least won the praise of Tianji Sword Immortal in battle. Perhaps for Tianji Sword Immortal, it was impossible to kill Wu Yu under the protection of the Emperor. It was better not to make the relationship so tense, so as not to bring real trouble to Xuanhuan. At least Wu Yu just wants to seek justice now and does not regard Xuanhuan as a life and death enemy. But Qiang Sword Immortal couldn't listen. He was furious and couldn't help but said, Brother Tianji, are you still standing with our Xuanhuan Immortal Sect? Tianji Sword Immortal raised his eyebrows. He was calm, not angry, but said, when I shed my blood for Xuanhuan, you were not born yet. What do you think? Qiang Sword Immortal, who was furious and lost all sense of proportion, could not be compared with Tianji Sword Immortal, so he was silenced in just 2 sentences. Such a conversation sounds like Tianji Sword Immortal is giving in. The Xuanhuan sword cultivators prefer Qiang Sword Immortal's rude response. Any disciple who has some brains and can figure things out knows that Tianji Sword Immortal is actually the right choice. Wu Yu is no longer what he used to be, and being entangled in him to the death due to personal grudges will definitely not do any good to Xuanhuan. Today's defeat of the 2 geniuses must be acknowledged. That's enough. Suddenly, a gentle voice came from outside. When Wu Yu looked up, he saw 5 figures landing on the Xuanhuan Immortal domain. When he saw these 5 figures, the Xuanhuan disciples feeling so excited, he quickly knelt on the ground and shouted loudly, I have seen the 7 Immortals. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. This is the first time that the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan have gathered together in a long time. When Wu Yu first came to Xuanhuan, he would never have thought that one day, all the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan would appear together because of him. The 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan are named after the Big Dipper and are arranged in order of strength. The strongest among them is Tianji Sword Immortal. After that, they were, Tianqian Sword Immortal, Tianji Sword Immortal, Tianquan Sword Immortal, Yuhang Sword Immortal, Qiang Sword Immortal and Yaoguang Sword Immortal. Among them, there were 5 men and 2 women. The 2 girls are the strongest Tianji Sword Immortal and the last-ranked Yaoguang Sword Immortal. But in fact, it seems that the light-shaking sword cultivator is older than the Tianji Sword Immortal. Wu Yu had heard that Tianji Sword Immortal was the most powerful in Xuanhuan, but in fact she was only older than the youngest Qiang Sword Immortal. She was one of the most amazing geniuses in Xuanhuan 200 years ago. When she was at her most glorious, she completely suppressed the light of Qiang Sword Immortal Nangang Xian. Wu Yu's eyes now also fell on the number 1 Tianji Sword Immortal. What surprised him was that this Tianji Sword Immortal was a young woman wearing a plain robe, with long black hair tied up in a bun. How stunning, but very elegant, with a peaceful expression that makes people feel at peace. Her dark eyes are deep and clean, with a clear feeling of greatness. Perhaps among the 7 immortals of Xuanhuan, she seems inconspicuous at all. She may even be a little out of place with the other 6, but if you look at her for a long time, you will find that she is actually in a better state. So when she appeared, even Emperor Xue's face became more serious, and there seemed to be some respect in his eyes. The other sword immortal, the Tianqian sword immortal, is older than the Tianji sword immortal. He has a stooped figure, pale hair, and a wrinkled face. He is highly virtuous and relies on a cane. He is the oldest of the 7 immortals of Xuanhuan. The other 2, Tianquan sword immortal and Yuhang sword immortal, are majestic, middle-aged sword cultivators who have emerged from the dust, and are more mature and steady than Qiang sword immortal. The shaking light sword immortal is a beautiful and smart woman, gorgeously dressed and radiant. At first glance, she is more attractive than the Tianxia sword immortal. But after a few more glances, you will find that the first sword immortal is so elegant. Alongside her temperament, her magnificence has to recede to one side. At this moment, headed by Tianxia sword immortal, all the 7 immortals of Shu Mountain have arrived. Such a lineup has never been seen in the ages. Therefore, the disciples of Shu Mountain are even more excited. This unprecedented excitement can even temporarily make Beishan Mo feel aggrieved to death in battle. Set aside. Sword immortal Tianxu, long time no see. How are you? The emperor's commander cupped his hands and said in a very decent manner. He no longer looked as domineering as before. Among the sword immortals, Tianxia sword immortal was the leader. Tianxia sword immortal nodded slightly to the emperor commander. At this time, Qiang sword immortal could not wait to speak, but Tianxia sword immortal signaled him to be quiet in advance, and then faced the emperor commander and said, "We all know what happened today. As a result, Xuanhuan is truly convinced of this defeat. Wu Yu was originally my disciple of Xuanhuan, but he left by mistake. Therefore, today's bad consequences have occurred. Xuanhuan should face it calmly. Therefore, Xuanhuan will no longer pursue this matter from Wu Yu." This was her decision, and it was probably also the result of discussions among the other sword immortals. It seemed that the other 7 immortals of Xuanhuan were still more rational than Qiang sword immortal. As a result, Qiang sword immortal seemed particularly embarrassed. Of course, such a decision made the Xuanhuan disciples feel very aggrieved. Of course, they hoped in their hearts that the 7 immortals of Xuanhuan could lead millions of sword cultivators to seek justice. However, being on the unreasonable side and provoking Yanhuang Emperor City is just asking for trouble. Seeing that Tianxia sword immortal had given it to him at the foot of the steps, the emperor commander said, "I am only helping Wu Yu in this matter. Tianxia sword immortal can understand best." After all, he ignored Qiang sword immortal, but when facing a strange woman like Tianxia sword immortal, he still restrained himself. However, that day, Shu Jianxian had a worried look on her face. She said solemnly, "The disputes among young disciples are all trivial matters. Whether they live or die depends on their own destiny. Those who can survive are the heroes of the future. So today Wu Yu there is nothing wrong. It is another matter, but it is a fundamental matter involving all the compatriots in Dongsheng Shenzhou. This matter requires us and Yanhuang Emperor City to deal with it together." Hearing this, not only Wu Yu, but also the Emperor Shui was startled. Everyone was stunned. That day Shu Jianxian said, "I just received the news that the Hell Palace of the East China Sea, leading all the ghost cultivators entrenched in the East China Sea, is attacking the East China Sea. The news just came that countless mortals have been destroyed and the sect has been destroyed." The worried look in her eyes was not without reason. The next volume, Volume 5 War Between Ghosts and Gods, so stay tuned. The inner demon in Xuanhuan has been cut off, but Nangang Wei's story is far from over. What will the departing Tianhaiyu Fugui bring? What will happen to the 9 infants in seclusion when they come out? What will happen to the eggs obtained by the devouring heaven demon mansion? Please see the follow-up. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 474. Before Tianqi's Sword Immortal spoke, Wu Yu was still thinking about Nangongwei and Xuanhuan. At this time, I heard Tianqi's Sword Immortal say that a fundamental event happened involving everyone in Dongsheng Shenzhou. It caught his attention, and it turned out that this big event had something to do with ghost cultivators. Wu Yu has met many ghost cultivators, almost all of them extremely vicious. His bad impression of ghost cultivators is even far greater than that of monsters. From Ghost Princess, to the 7 ghosts of the Red Sea, to the ghost wings of the Black Mountain, their way of cultivating the Taoism is all about strength, regardless of merit, so they use cruel methods to do all kinds of things that are harmful to nature. The Palace of Hell in the East China Sea, the largest force of ghost cultivators, actually led all the ghost cultivators to attack the east coast of Shenzhou. Moreover, mortals and sects have already perished. Hearing this news and thinking of the vicious ghost cultivator, everyone felt tight in their hearts. Most of the disciples live in a peaceful and prosperous age, and the only disputes about life and death are with demons. Even Qiang's Sword Immortal, who was originally angry in his heart, now looked at Tianqi's Sword Immortal with shock on his face and said, "How is this possible, senior sister Tianqi? Do you mean that ghost cultivators came out to attack Dongsheng God, Zhou? There is nothing wrong with their minds. This is what most people think too. It is said that the 4 Dongyang Islands together are about 1/5 of the size of the entire Dongsheng Divine Continent. There are also many mortals on them, and of course there are also many ghost cultivators. The 4 Dongyang Islands are the main ones, and there are hundreds of thousands of islands, all of which are cultivators. The way of ghosts and gods. The natural conditions there are harsh, so most of the ghost cultivators who survived, and even mortals, are vicious and do all kinds of evil. Compared with Dongsheng Divine Continent, it can be said to be a hell on earth, and the bloody Shura field is like an entire god. A place where even the righteous sects of the continent are unable to save. After all, the 4 Dongyang Islands are a bit far away. It would be too risky for the Shenzhou sect to go there alone, and it would be difficult to gain anything. The intersection between Shenzhou and Donghai is relatively small, and there is nothing on the 4 Dongyang Islands that the Shenzhou sect intends, so the ghost cultivators there survive. Since ancient times, there have indeed been some ghost cultivators who have not been long-sighted and want to occupy the blessed land of the Immortal Mountain in Dongsheng Shenzhou, but they will basically be wiped out soon. After all, the way of cultivation of ghost cultivators is different from that of the cultivators in Shenzhou. It is too big, and as long as it is discovered on the Divine Continent, it will basically be killed together. As for such a big movement, it is obvious that they want to confront the entire monastic sect of the Divine Continent. To be honest, the Palace of Hell is nothing more than digging its own grave, because although there are many ghost cultivators, the total number of ghost cultivators is less than 1/5 of the righteous sect of Dongsheng Shenzhou. The strongest Palace of Hell is actually one of the immortal sects in Shushan Mountain level. Because of this, such a large-scale attack is really rare, so if this news did not come from the mouth of Tianqi's Sword Immortal, no one would believe it. In front of everyone, Tianqi's Sword Immortal said solemnly, "This matter has been spread to all major sections. I have a list of more than 10 sects that have been destroyed. Reliable news is that the ghost cultivators from the East China Sea have indeed come out in full force to gather. Countless people have landed on the Divine Continent, and now the coastal area has almost become a Shura field. All of these more than 10 sects have been wiped out. So tragic." Wu Yu could imagine a doomsday scene. When they heard the news, the millions of sword cultivators below all put aside the personal grudges between Wu Yu, Bei Shanmo, and others. Tianqi's Sword Immortal said that this was a major event that affected everyone. Many people would practice Taoism throughout their lives. Not encountered. For a moment, everyone looked pale, shocked, and even a little panicked. They looked at each other and discussed in low voices. The situation was obviously extremely anxious. After hearing so much, the Emperor's commander's eyes were heavy and he said, "What is the purpose of the ghost cultivators who made such a big move? Could it be that they are tired of staying in the East China Sea and feel that the land of Dongsheng Divine Continent is fertile, the territory is vast, and there are many blessed places in the cave? Do you want to occupy Shenzhou and kill all our cultivators? This is something that even demons cannot do. The demons of Shenzhou can only hide in the endless demon sea. If it were not for the existence of the endless demon sea, the demons would have been driven out by the cultivators of Shenzhou." Tianqi's sword immortal said solemnly, "I think it is possible. But why didn't you dare to do this before? There must be a reason. As for the reason for this, no one knows for the time being. But, this must be crucial." Just when people's expressions changed and people were talking about it, the emperor received a communication talisman. It was obviously from Yanhuang City Lord. After reading it, his face became solemn. It was obvious that what Yanhuang City Lord said was similar to Tianqi's sword immortal. After all, it's the same news coming over from the East Coast. "Which sects have been destroyed?" General Murong asked. Wu Yu suddenly became nervous, his heart in his throat. The emperor's commander handed over the list on the messenger talisman to General Murong. Wu Yu took a look at it with piercing eyes. Fortunately, there was no Tongtian sword sect on it. However, Wu Yu saw the name of the Kanghai Dao sect with the words "total destruction" written behind it. Kanghai Daozong. Wu Yu was very familiar with this Kanghai Dao section. During one of his missions in the East China Sea, he achieved the golden body of King Nanwu Haori, which was related to this Kanghai Dao section. The Kanghai Dao sect obtained the Lanling gold mine. Unexpectedly, not long after, it was actually wiped out. That's all living life. A shadow gradually enveloped Wu Yu's heart. At this time, even he himself was forced to forget the promised battle and Nangang Wei's hatred for him. The matter in front of him was undoubtedly related to the fate of the entire divine continent. Everyone knows that there must be a reason to mobilize so many ghost cultivators. Ghost cultivators will not come rashly. There must be some certainty. The more arrogant you are in this crisis, the more likely it is to be more difficult than you think. The emperor said to Tianshi Uncian, "This matter is of great importance. I must return to Yanhuang Emperor City immediately. We will communicate with each other through the communication talisman for subsequent joint resistance to the enemy. If it is really so troublesome, it may be necessary to mobilize the cultivators of the entire Shenzhou, and even ask the Tianyi clan to join in. They are closer to the ghost cultivators. If there is any trouble, they will be the first to bear the brunt." "No problem. Then communicate with the communication talisman at any time." Tianshi Uncian nodded. The emperor's face was heavy. At this time, he turned the direction of the black warship and drove the black warship away from the Fanjianyu without saying a word. This time the black warship was faster. Obviously, he was also racing against time. Although the mission of Yanhuang Emperor City was to guard the devouring demon mansion, it was also a matter of great importance to Shenzhou. Wu Yu looked back and saw the solemn faces of the 7 immortals of Shushan. Then he looked down and saw Nangang Wei had stood up from the battlefield of life and death. She looked a little dazed. When the black warship left, she and Wu Yu had a final look. Her eyes seemed to say, "Our business is far from over." Wu Yu also saw that maybe this was a bad fate, but from today on, it would be more difficult to completely sever the relationship. Sometimes love is easy to break, but hate is not clear. In the blink of an eye, the black warship flew out of the Fanjian domain, and even the Qingtian Shushan gradually disappeared from the field of vision. On the Yanhuang warship, everyone's expression was very serious. The young Yanhuang immortal army was a little uneasy. They sat on the deck and looked at each other in silence. Compared with the landing of the ghost cultivator, Wu Yu's own affairs were indeed a little insignificant, so at this time, he was no longer an exception. Wu Yu, your performance today is particularly amazing, but it's a pity that many of our brothers don't have the time and opportunity to celebrate with you. The Emperor Marshal found him and said in a deep voice. Wu Yu shook his head and said, "This is not worth celebrating. Besides, the ghost cultivation is not only serious, but also weird and full of mystery. We know too little now. If the ghost cultivation is really crazy, I am afraid that every cultivator in Shenzhou will be responsible. Otherwise, if they lose their homes, Shenzhou will be the next hell on earth. There are so many mortals here, so many cultivators who want to become immortals. For Wu Yu, Shenzhou is beautiful, even dangerous, and the ghost cultivation is insidious and vicious, and has no merit. If they are unscrupulous, it is really terrible. Especially for mortals who are powerless. This matter is indeed weird. All the sects in Shenzhou must gather immediately and unify their opinions. At the same time, the most urgent task is to find out what changes have taken place in the Yanhuang Palace. Another thing is to stop the attack of the ghost cultivation and prevent it from involving mortals. My eldest brother and Taixu Saint Lord have probably started to make arrangements. In the face of major events, the efficiency of the cultivators in Shenzhou is still quite high. The black warship is returning to Yanhuang Emperor City quickly. Wu Yu knows that ghost cultivators are difficult to deal with because they have no organization or rules. They came to Shenzhou in a scattered manner. Once so many ghost cultivators come up, they will be everywhere. The most terrifying thing is that they infiltrate into the 3,000 immortal kingdoms and attack mortals, and there must be corpses everywhere. And Dongyu Kingdom is one of the 3,000 immortal kingdoms. More importantly, Dongyu Kingdom is on the edge of the East China Sea. So at this time, Wu Yu was actually more nervous than anyone else. Even Fang Kaoken and the others saw it and hurriedly came up to comfort him. "Commander Wu, don't worry, your family will be absolutely fine. Ghost cultivators dare not be so rampant. They probably know where Wu Yu's hometown is. This is not a comforting thing. Wu Yu knows how dangerous it is. Now he is using the black warship to quickly return to Yanhuang Emperor City. Emperor Marshal, I will leave first after returning to the Imperial City," Wu Yu said. "Why, the Emperor Marshal still wants him to have a good rest. My hometown and relatives are on the shore of the East China Sea, as well as my master, brothers, and sisters. They are in danger, I must go back," Wu Yu said. Emperor Marshal thought about it. He probably knew Wu Yu's origin. It seems that he is a prince of a fairy land, and his sister is still the queen of that fairy land. Thinking of this, Emperor Marshal nodded and said, "Okay, you go, but you must pay attention to protect yourself. If you have any questions, please contact me at any time." He also believed in Wu Yu. In fact, Wu Yu was already strong enough. It is estimated that there are not many opponents for the captain of 1,000 men now, and there are not many ghost cultivators in the East China Sea who have surpassed Wu Yu in cultivation. Especially Wu Yu's biggest advantage, the extra-legal clone, is really amazing. It is not so easy to kill Wu Yu. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 475. After the black warship arrived at Yanhuang Emperor City, Wu Yu left immediately. Of course he didn't let the Emperor Shui send him there. As an important person as the Emperor Shui, he needed to take the overall situation into consideration. Protecting his relatives was a private matter, so Wu Yu had to do it himself. All generals and commanders in Yanhuang Emperor City must serve the overall situation. Wu Yu is only a centurion, so he can leave privately and go to the East China Sea alone. However, the brothers and sisters from Kishan camp wanted to follow Wu Yu to help, but Wu Yu refused. It was very dangerous there now, and Wu Yu could not guarantee their safety. After returning to Yanhuang Emperor City, it can be seen from the sky that the entire Yanhuang Emperor city is not as lively as in the past, and is even very chaotic. Many people gather together to discuss issues with serious expressions. There are many Yanhuang warships in the Yanhuang Emperor city, and under the control of the captains, they are already heading east. The matter was so important that Yanhuang Emperor city did not carry out the mission because of the mission and interests. It is estimated that the Yanhuang city lord, Taixu Holy Lord, the 7 immortals of Xuanhuan, as well as the Tianyi clan, martial god Tianmen, Gasu Fairy Peak, Tian Thunder Palace and other sects have reached a consensus, and even formed a consensus with all the large and small sects in the entire Shenzhou. Unanimous determination. However, for the time being, I still don't know what changes the ghost cultivator has undergone. It is said that in the past few days, several sects have perished, and several mortal and fairy kingdoms have also lost their lives. Wu Yu didn't dare to find out what sect and fairy kingdom it was. After leaving Yanhuang Emperor City, he had already put everything that happened in Shu Mountain behind his mind and headed towards Dongyu Wu Kingdom at full speed. For the time being, neither Wu Yu nor Feng Shui has passed the communication talisman to themselves, so the result should be good. Wu Yu used the divine movement technique. Even if he was exhausted, he still had to rush back as soon as possible. The divine movement technique allowed him to control the sword 5 times as fast, which was already much faster than before. I think it would have taken him several months to get to Xuanhuan Immortal sect. Under the divine movement technique, the golden sword light flew towards the east. Wu Yu prepared the messenger talisman for Wu Yu, described the matter clearly, and also passed it to the Tongtian sword sect, asking Feng Shui to open the million sword formation in the Tongtian sword sect, while Lan Huayun went to the Wudu Palace, activate the million sword array. He did not ask anyone to take Wu Yu to the Tongtian sword sect, because in fact, for ghost cultivators, the sect is their first target. If they encounter powerful ghost cultivators, the Tongtian sword sect will be more dangerous. The Mortal Palace is the second target of attack, and the third is major towns, where many mortals gather. The more remote and rural a mortal is, the safer he is. The transmission of the talisman was faster. Wu Yu could only pray that the ghost cultivators had not yet found the Dongyu Wu Kingdom and the Tongtian sword section. Wu Yu had seen the casualties of the sects, and they were located a little further north on the map than the Dongyu Wu Kingdom. Most of the ghost cultivators should be near Kanghai Dao sect for the time being, but with the number and speed of the ghost cultivators spreading, it won't take long to reach the Dongyu Wu Kingdom a little further south. All I can do next is pray. Not long after, I was lucky to receive a reply from Feng Shui and Wu Yu. They didn't know how tragic the situation was yet, but they responded, "I have done what you said and are waiting for your return." In fact, they also knew that if it wasn't a major matter, Wu Yu wouldn't be in such a hurry to return. Wu Yu was extremely tired under the magic of divine movement, his face was pale, and he was breathing heavily, but his eyes were ferocious and red, and he had no intention of stopping. "Would you like to take a rest?" Minglong asked. "Need not. For him now, even a slight delay may lead to disastrous consequences. Although the million sword formation is now activated, whether they will encounter ghost cultivators who can easily destroy the million sword formation controlled by Feng Xia and the others is actually just a matter of luck." Wu Yu didn't know how to stop and kept moving forward crazily. "Don't get into trouble. Don't get into trouble." Recalling every detail of Wu Yu and the Tongtian sword sect, it is undoubtedly a torture for Wu Yu. He rushed eastward like crazy, even to the point of blaming himself, thinking that if he had not gone to Xuanhuan and stayed in Yanhuang Emperor City, he might have arrived in Dongyu Wu Kingdom by now. About 1 day away from Wudu, Wu Yu received Wu Yu's original talisman, which read, "Ghost cultivators have appeared. Several cities in the east have been destroyed. Corpses are everywhere. I'm crying, come back soon." Seeing this line of words, Wu Yu was so nervous that she was about to explode. Wu Yu said that she cried. She was born with compassion. After ascending the throne, she worked conscientiously just so that people could live a better life, be richer, and live and work in peace and contentment. Now there are actually several cities. Mortals were destroyed, and there was nothing she could do. At this time, she must be feeling very uncomfortable. Wu Yu is very familiar with the cities in the east. He once led troops to fight there and even garrisoned some cities. The people in Suqiao are very enthusiastic, have a good temper, and the people are docile, but now the outcome is not good. Ghost cultivators are like locusts passing through. How many mortal families suffered, how many young children, how many people with deep emotions fell in a pool of blood. After Wu Yu read it, he continued to overdraft the magic technique. Time has become his biggest problem now. About half a day later, another summons was received, this time from Feng Xia. He said, a ghost cultivator appeared and was killed by the million-sword array. The situation in the palace was not bad, but it is said that ghosts appeared near the imperial city. Cultivators. There are so many ghost cultivators coming ashore this time. Something big has happened. I heard that the whole country of Nanshan Zhao Kingdom has been destroyed. Nanshan Zhao Kingdom. In my memory, it was a very beautiful place. Of course Wu Yu fought with the Zhao Kingdom in Nanshan, but it was undeniable that the scenery here was magnificent and even mortals looked very good looking. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Will Dongyu Wu Kingdom follow in the same footsteps? There was no time to think. For Wu Yu, the most practical thing now was to return as quickly as possible. Getting closer, getting closer. I haven't received any news from Wu Yu and Feng Shui since then. They probably knew that they were approaching and didn't dare to rush Wu Yu anymore. But Wu Yu had a premonition that when the first wave of ghost cultivators entered the Dongyu Wu Kingdom, the rest were probably about the same. Maybe the East China Sea of the Dongyu Wu Kingdom would become the place where the ghost cultivators came ashore from the East China Sea. Finally, when he was pale from exhaustion, he entered the border of Dongyu Wu Kingdom as quickly as possible. He is exhausted from maintaining the magic technique for such a long time. Fortunately, he still has a clone. With his current control over the clone can go anywhere within the territory of Dongyu Wu Kingdom. Therefore, Wu Yu fell in a valley at this time, but the next moment, thousands of Wu Yu suddenly separated, and their swords soared into the sky. Although the speed is not as fast as Wu Yu's magic, it is still enough. After all, Wu Yu's body can no longer move, and he urgently needs to replenish it. Among them, 500 clones, covering the sky and the sun, headed towards Wu Du. 500 clones headed towards the Tongtian sword sect. As for his true body, he sat down cross-legged and swallowed the Kanghai Yuankai pill to restore his depleted body as soon as possible. For the time being, Wu Yu still felt that the clone could deal with most of the ghost cultivators that appeared. If the true body really wanted to be dispatched, the ones he would encounter would be a big shot in ghost cultivation. The eyes of thousands of clones are actually his eyes, so it can be said that the current situation of Wu Kingdom in Dongyu is completely visible. He has flown over several cities in the west. The situation is not bad for the time being, but the people are panicked and everywhere fleeing. Many people heard that the city was destroyed, and now they are fleeing into the mountains in panic. This situation is almost like the end of the world. Screaming, crying, and panicking, people were running around with tears in their eyes. Many people were in chaos, their wives and children were separated, and they could only kneel on the ground and cry helplessly, with tears covering their clothes. When you get close to Wudu, you can feel the tragic atmosphere, surrounded by ghosts in the sky in the distance. Several cities near Wudu were basically empty. Most of them fled directly into Wudu. One of the cities probably didn't have time to leave, so there was blood and corpses everywhere. One of Wu Yu's clones fell here. Suddenly he was shaking with anger. These dead people are all innocent mortals. The ghost cultivator is so cruel. Is there really not even a single good person among them? Time did not allow him to sigh. His 500 clones rushed towards Wudu. These were all clones comparable to the heavenly sword level. Not to mention 500, just one. Ordinary ghost cultivators would flee. Sure enough, the million sword formation has been activated. It can be seen that outside the million sword formation, there are about a dozen ghost cultivators who are laughing loudly, refining various evil magic weapons, and bombarding the million sword formation outside, but they are not going in. Did you see that? The person in charge of the formation is a woman. She looks really delicious. Once the formation is broken, this beautiful woman will belong to our brothers. Gigi, look at this figure, it's really round. After tasting it, its eyes and tongue can be used as materials to sacrifice this treasure of mine. The eyes and tongue of a monk should be comparable to more than 1,000 mortals, right? Or even 10,000. Brothers, work harder, that little girl can't hold it anymore. The ghost cultivators laughed loudly and unscrupulously, and the million sword array trembled one after another. It was obvious that it could not last long, but Lan Huayun, who was in the golden Cordeo realm, was exhausted, her face was pale, and she looked outside with horror. All the civil and military officials of Wudu, as well as Wuyu, were behind him. So many ghost cultivators frightened these mortals out of their courage. Everyone, calm down, my brother must be dying soon. Wuyu bit his red lips and said loudly and firmly. Wearing a dragon robe, she looked domineering. Lan Huayun is also struggling to support herself. Her eyes were a little dazzled, and she suddenly remembered the first time she saw Wuyu. At that time, she had a huge conflict with Wuyu because of her disciple Situ Ming Lang. Unexpectedly, one day, he would become a dragon among people, and he would be willing to protect his home here. However, the ghost cultivator was so cruel that she could not imagine how miserable she would be after defeat. Until suddenly, she saw countless Wuye suddenly appearing in the sky, and she was dazzled. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm so dazzled to see so many of him. Fourth update completed. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 476. /U0026NB. /U0026NB. Most of these dozen ghost cultivators are in the Qi condensing immortal root realm, but there are also 3 or 4 who are in the golden core realm. /U0026NB. They are much stronger than the 7 ghosts of Shihei who attacked the Tongtian sword sect in the first place. /U0026NB. So at this time, Lan Huayun obviously couldn't support it. After all, the million sword formation required a lot of manpower. /U0026NB. Bevan Wuyu, a beginner who has just stepped into the path of immortality, can see that Lan Huayun looks miserable and is even ready to commit suicide. /U0026NB. Once this million sword formation is broken and this ghost cultivator is allowed to come in, the capital of Wu will turn into hell. The 10,000 years of Suqiao's foundation will be ruined in my hands. /U0026NB. Wu looked up at the sky. Through the communication talismans in the past few days, she knew that Wu Yu was coming soon, but she didn't know whether he could catch up. /U0026NB. It's up to fate. /U0026NB. Everyone is waiting for the prince who was once famous in Suqiao. /U0026NB. When Wu Yu's 500 clones descended on Wudu, people first thought that they had seen it wrong and had hallucinations out of despair. /U0026NB. After all, they were waiting for one Wu Yu. How could 500 Wu Yes appear? /U0026NB. So when Wu Yu appeared, no one in Wu City was celebrating for a while, and most people's eyes were even more desperate. /U0026NB. However, the dozen ghost cultivators were so frightened that half of their lives were lost. They were clearly ghost cultivators. At this time, they all had expressions of seeing ghosts. They didn't think they were hallucinating. /U0026NB Who are you? Dare to disturb our good deeds, one of the ghost cultivators said sternly. /U0026NB looked at the ghost cultivators. Maybe they were the ones responsible for the destroyed cities near Wudu. This hatred is already irreconcilable. So many mortals in Suqiao died, Wu Yu felt extremely guilty, but even more angry. /U0026 and was not in a hurry to kill. A group of clones came forward and easily controlled the dozen ghost cultivators. Each clone pinched the neck of a ghost cultivator. Those ghost cultivators were horrified to find that they could crush them when they came to Shenzhou. They suppressed mortals and killed at will, but when they met Wu Yu, it was as if they had become mortals. /U0026NB I ask you questions. If you don't answer or fool me, I will send you to the Western Heaven on the spot. Starting with you, one of Wu Yu's clones spoke. He clicked on the ghost cultivator on the far left and asked, You East China Sea Ghosts Xiu, how many people came to Shenzhou this time? Did all the ghost cultivators from the East China Sea come out? /U0026 Nth ghost cultivator gritted his teeth and said, If you want to know the answer, just be polite to our brothers, ah. /U0026NB Before he finished speaking, Wu Yu's hand burned with golden flames, instantly engulfing the ghost cultivator. In the horrified eyes of his companions, the ghost cultivator was burned to death by the golden flames. He kept screaming, his companions turned pale and began to tremble all over. /U0026 Nth This process lasted for a while, and it was obviously a painful torture. /U0026 N Until they saw the ghost cultivator being burned alive, people in Wudu also realized that maybe they were not dazzled. They asked the people next to them if what they saw was the same as them. /U0026 N Bevan Lan Huayun turned around in shock and asked Wu Yu, Did you also see hundreds of him, is he back? /U0026 N Wu Yu was shocked. She thought it was an illusion. At this time, she couldn't help but be ecstatic. She looked at Wu Yu with tears in her eyes and said, Yes, it's him. /U0026 N After receiving Wu Yu's confirmation, all the civil and military officials were overjoyed and cheered. This kind of cheering is contagious. In the blink of an eye, the cheers spread completely, and the whole Wu capital was boiling for a while. All the people cried with joy and shouted Wu Yu's name. For them, Wu Yu was the legendary savior in the history of Suqiao. The story of Wu Yu is now like a myth, circulating in Suqiao. Mortals even say that Wu Yu has become an immortal. Now these hundreds of clones are almost like gods descending to earth. /U0026 And while Wu Du was cheering, Wu Yu asked the second ghost cultivator, It's the same question just now. Answer it honestly. If you don't obey, you will die worse than that person just now. /U0026 Nth ghost cultivator asked, I will tell you everything honestly, can you spare me? /U0026 N Wu Yu hesitated for a moment, nodded and said, It depends on your performance. Tell me everything you know. /U0026 NB Let me tell you. /U0026 N For the chance of survival, everyone competed. /U0026 NB Come one by one, don't worry, I'll see who can explain it in the most detail, Wu Yu said in a deep voice. /U0026 N Whoever he pointed at was up to him. The ghost cultivators knew that Wu Yu was strong, so they completely gave up resistance at this time. /U0026 N Second ghost cultivator said, Yes, this time almost all the ghost cultivators in our East China Sea have been recruited. We are all dispatched this time to land on Dongsheng Shenzhou, just to seize Dongsheng Shenzhou and occupy these billions. The fertile soil makes this place the genius of our ghost cultivator. Compared with the islands in the East China Sea, Dongsheng Shenzhou is so superior. It has always been our ghost cultivator's dream to expand Shenzhou into our back garden. /U0026 NWU blocked his voice, and then asked the next person this question alone. The person looked excited and said basically the same thing. /U0026 NB They promised that when we come to Dongsheng Divine Continent, no matter what we rob, it will be our own. After attacking the sect, we can directly occupy the cave heaven paradise and establish a sect. If we attack the mortal capital, we can directly occupy the mortal immortals the country and all mortals will become our slaves. /U0026 Nth Ghost cultivators treat mortals as livestock, cultivate with mortal blood, souls, and even babies, and have lost all conscience. Once the fairyland is controlled and mortals are enslaved, the entire country will definitely become a hell on earth. It is estimated that the neighboring Nanshan Zhao state is now the same. This is also the reason why the ghost cultivators give priority to attacking the mortal capital. Wu Yu can hold on until now, which is considered lucky. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. /U0026 NB Who is the person who promised you? Wu Yu's heart was raging with anger. This is the anger of the entire Shenzhou, not just him. He just passed by a few cities, and the scene was simply outrageous. The way of ghosts and gods should not exist in this world. For example, the Black Mountain Ghost Wing wanted to massacre several sects to create the Ghost Absolute Formation, which is so evil. /U0026 NB In fact, this matter cannot be concealed at all. After all the ghost cultivators know it, so there is no need for them to hide it. /U0026 NWU asked them individually as usual. Anyone who dared not answer honestly or answer differently from others would be killed on the spot. His methods were brutal, and with so many clones, the ghost cultivators had already been scared out of their wits. /U0026 Nbone of the ghost cultivators said, among the 4 islands of Dongyang, the Yanhuang Palace is the strongest. The strength of the Yanhuang Palace is not weaker than the Shushan Immortal sect, Shangyuan Dao sect, and Yanhuang Emperor City in Shenzhou. There are also many other ghost cultivation sects, and the powerful ones among them are not weaker than your Wushan Tianmen and Gasu Fairy Peak. The Yanhuang Palace has 8 Yanhuangs, who are the main leaders. They originally have supreme status and voice in the ghost cultivation world. We usually listen to them. However, this time, it is not them who really touched us and made us feel that it was someone else who conquered Shenzhou. /U0026 NB Who? /U0026 NBU had heard of the so-called Yanhuang Palace and the 8 Yanhuangs. The 8 Yanhuangs combined are probably about the same as the 7 Immortals of Shushan, all of whom are in the Yuanshen waxing realm. With their ability and courage, it is impossible for them to mobilize such a big movement to attack Dongsheng Shenzhou. There must be a new existence. /U0026 Nth Ghost Cultivator was very excited and said, it's the Dead Lord. /U0026 NB Who is the Dead Lord? /U0026 NB I don't know. He appeared out of thin air. It is said that he was a slave of a ghost cultivator before. He was extremely miserable, tortured, and barely alive. He was originally immortal, but for some reason, he suddenly had good fortune. It has been less than 2 years. He grew at an astonishing speed. Just a month ago, he grew to the most terrifying level. I don't know what realm he was in. At that time, he killed his way to the Yanhuang Palace. Under the attention of countless people, he defeated the 8 Yanhuangs on the spot with overwhelming strength. The 8 Yanhuangs had to bow down to him to save their lives. Now, we ghost cultivators respectfully call the Dead Lord the Ghost Emperor. He is now the supreme emperor of the entire East China Sea. Even the 8 Yanhuangs can only be under his command and be dispatched by him. /U0026 NBU was extremely shocked after hearing this. \U0026N How is it possible that someone could, within 2 years, go from being a mortal who suffered all kinds of hardships to being able to defeat the combined forces of the 8 Hell Emperors? This is more terrifying than defeating the combined forces of the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan. Even the Lord of Yanhuang City and the Lord of Taizhou in the entire Shenzhou may not be sure of defeating the combined forces of the 7 Immortals of Xuanhuan. Moreover, according to their description, the Lord of the Dead Spirit is still crushing. \U0026NB The 8th Emperor of Hell lost with conviction. I heard from the first Emperor of Hell that the Ghost Emperor is definitely the strongest in the world. Even the Lord of Yanhuang City and the Lord of Taizhou in Shenzhou are definitely not as good as him. He is the miracle of the world. With the existence of the Ghost Emperor, our ghost cultivators can be truly revived. As expected, after defeating the 8th Emperor of Hell and unifying the ghost cultivators, the Ghost Emperor immediately announced an attack on Dongsheng Shenzhou. He promised that he would definitely occupy Dongsheng Shenzhou for ghost cultivators, and even a wider world. We ghost cultivators have always envied the millions of fertile lands in Shenzhou. Now with the Ghost Emperor in charge, we are invincible in the world. When he kills many masters in Shenzhou, Shenzhou will be leaderless, and this place will belong to us ghost cultivators. \U0026NB Host Emperor, Lord of the Dead Spirit. \U0026NBs He is super genius, or a resurrected big devil. \U0026NB After listening to this, Wu Yu felt a little depressed. If this Lord of Death was really so powerful, then Shenzhou would indeed face a terrible disaster this time. This was really a moment of life and death. \U0026NB Some at times, the birth of a terrifying existence would indeed cause a catastrophe for the entire world. For example, the devouring demon ancestor was just one person, but he actually forced the celestial being to descend to the mortal world. \U0026NB Therefore, this Lord of Death should never be underestimated. \U0026NB However, the biggest doubt is, what on earth did this Lord of Death rely on to instantly become such a terrifying existence from a mortal? \U0026NB asked the ghost cultivators. \U0026NB Ghost cultivators said, it is said that the Lord of Death can devour the enemy's golden elixir and purple mansion to strengthen himself. All opponents defeated by him, except the 8 Hell Emperors, had their golden elixir or purple mansion eaten. After eating, the Lord of Death can even obtain the opponent's magical powers, and can make himself rapidly stronger, breaking through a realm a day. \U0026NB Wu Yu was horrified when he heard this. \U0026NB This the legendary devouring demon ancestor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 477. Ming Long, what's going on? Wu Yu could only ask her. Ming Long was also surprised at this time. She said, it's unlikely. The devouring demon ancestor has died a long time ago. Even if he still exists, it will be the egg in your hand. How can he be resurrected by others? I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. But how come this devouring method is so similar to the legendary devouring demon ancestor? Wu Yu frowned. There are all kinds of things in the world, and coincidences are not necessarily the case. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't blame yourself first. The most urgent thing is to spread what you know. Ming Long was still calm in the face of major events. Yeah, Wu Yu nodded. What he was most worried about was that if the dead lord was the devouring demon ancestor, and the devouring demon ancestor appeared because he entered the devouring demon palace, then this disaster had the most to do with him. If you think about it carefully, when Qin Fuwei left the devouring demon palace and returned to the ghost cultivation world, She might have taken something with her. But why was it not Qin Fuwei who became the Ghost Emperor? There are many doubts here, and it is not certain whether this is related to Wu Yu and Luo Ben breaking into the Devouring Demon Palace. Moreover, if the Devouring Demon ancestor was reborn, he should have recovered in a low-key manner. What is the purpose of making such a high-profile commotion? It is difficult to understand this matter by thinking. All the questions they wanted to ask were answered. The ghost cultivators were expecting Wu Yu to let them go. Wu Yu glanced at them coldly, pointed at one of them, and said, "You answered the most detailed question. I won't kill you." The others were horrified and panicked, but Wu Yu's clone who controlled them exerted a little force, and the golden flames on the clones engulfed them, burning these ghost cultivators into ashes. Their hands were covered with blood, and they deserved such punishment. The last ghost cultivator was left, and he was overjoyed and thanked him quickly, "Thank you for not killing me." "Thank you. If you have anything else to know, just ask me. If you know everything, then let me go first." Wu Yu smiled lightly, and with a casual move, the million sword formation below stopped working. He stretched out his hand and grabbed it, and Lan Huayun below broke through the wind and came to him. After recuperation, Lan Huayun's face was a little ruddy. When she saw Wu Yu again, she was a little nervous as an elder. "Kill him," Wu Yu said to Lan Huayun. "You, how can you go back on your word?" the ghost cultivator screamed with a pale face. Wu Yu said, "I really won't kill you, but I didn't say that others won't kill you. You killed so many of my fellow countrymen in Dongguo, and I only killed you once, which is considered to be kind to you." How could he let any ghost cultivator go? Lan Huayun knew what he meant. She hated this ghost cultivator as much as Wu Yu, so she was straightforward and decisive at this time. She stabbed the magic sword in her hand into the ghost cultivator's body, and the ice covered it. The ghost cultivator's face was miserable and he kept struggling. "No matter who you are. You cultivators, under the might of my ghost emperor, all must die. This land of Shenzhou will soon be the world of our ghost cultivators. There are billions of mortals here, and such good cultivation resources, but you squander them and don't know how to use them. If we occupy this place, Dongsheng Shenzhou will definitely become more prosperous. You will definitely not survive for more than a month. My ghost cultivator army is coming from the East China Sea. This small country will soon be littered with corpses, and you will all go to hell, ah." The ghost cultivator screamed and finally died in Lan Huayun's hands. "Be more ruthless next time. It's really annoying to hear them yelling," Wu Yu said to Lan Huayun. Yet even though Wu Yu looked serious, Lan Huayun was obedient at this time, like a follower around Wu Yu. Wu Yu was below. One of Wu Yu's clones couldn't wait to go down. Although the separation time was not long this time, it was too thrilling. Especially when it comes to the tragic deaths of the people of Dongguo, Wu Yu is now at his most vulnerable. "Don't be afraid, I'm back," Wu Yu hugged her. "Well, I'm relieved. Also, I must ask them to avenge their hatred. So many people died tragically. As the king of a country, I can't escape the blame," Wu Yu said in tears. Wu Yu shook his head and said, "You can't control the disputes between immortals and the impact on mortals. There is no need to blame yourself. From today on, I will guard Dongguo, and you will go to Tongtian Sword Sect first. This is my clone, and my real body is there." Wu Yu planned to sit in Tongtian Sword Sect with his real body, and then spread his clones throughout Dongguo. He wanted to kill all the ghost cultivators in Dongguo first. Okay. Of course, Wu Yu would also arrange for his clones to sit in Wudu, so the civil and military officials would be safe here. At this time, Wu Yu escorted Wu Yu and Lan Huayun to Tongtian Sword Sect with 100 clones. More than 30 of them were stationed in Wudu, operating the Million Sword Formation. More than 30 clones were equivalent to the Heaven Sword level, and ordinary ghost cultivators could not break through. The remaining clones, under Wu Yu's control, scattered and dispersed towards the entire Dongguo. Wu Yu's vision suddenly became extremely broad, and the eyes of all the clones were his eyes. His countless clones spoke at the same time, and the voice spread throughout Dongguo. My fellow villagers, I, Wu Yu, am back. Please don't leave the city and try to enter the city so that I can protect you. Hearing Wu Yu's voice, the mortals cried with joy. This is the immortal of Dongguo in the legend, the former prince of Dongguo. The chaotic Dongguo was slightly quiet at this time. Here, Wu Yu has passed all the information he knows to Shenzhen Jiao and Emperor Shui in the form of this talisman. They can inform Yanhuang Emperor City and Shushan Immortal Sect respectively, but soon Wu Yu was affected by the other party's original talisman. Wei Fu, the Emperor Commander and others already knew about the Undead Lord before Wu Yu, and now the Jindao sect is discussing how to deal with the Undead Lord. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. The necromancer is very smart. He basically doesn't show up. Even now, all the strong ghost cultivators are hiding, so that the strong men in Shenzhou have no chance to have a strong head-on fight with them. When the Ghost King hides, that is the most dangerous time. However, Emperor Shui also told Wu Yu another matter. Holy Lord Taixu once had a disciple named Qin Shensu. He was one of the terrifying geniuses of Shangyuan Dao section. He was expelled from Shangyuan Dao sect because of his unauthorized practice of ghost cultivating techniques and evil intentions. He thought that he was wronged, so he harbored great hatred and always wanted the Holy Lord Taixu of the Shangyuan Dao sect to pay the price. 100 years ago, he went to the East China Sea and joined the Yama Palace, and eventually became the 8th Yama Emperor of the Yama Palace, changing his name to Duo. Duo Mingshan Zhensu mainly cultivates the righteous path, but his heart is already a ghost cultivation. It is said that this Duo Mingshan Zhensu has a daughter who disappeared since childhood and reappeared recently. Tianhai Yufu. It turns out that Qin Fu is the daughter of the 8th Emperor of Hell in the Palace of Hell. No wonder she knew how to practice the righteous way and was arranged to enter the Yanhuang Emperor City as an undercover agent. It looked like it was premeditated. The 8th Hell Emperor, Tianhai Jade Lady, the Dead Soul Lord, the sky-swallowing demon mansion, the appearance of the series of people or dead things made Wu Yu a little confused. We haven't seen the necromancer now, and until the truth comes out, nothing can be determined. Therefore, he could only defend Suqiao first. When his 500 clones arrived in Wudu, the Tongtian sword sect was actually attacked by ghost cultivators. However, Feng Xiya was in charge here, so the situation was not that critical. Wu Yu's clones easily eliminated the ghost cultivators, and after asking about Lord Necromancer, basically the information I could get was pretty much the same. His main body rested for a period of time and then caught up. After the clones dealt with the ghost cultivators, he arrived at the Tongtian sword section. Wu Yu left behind about 50 clones and his main body. The other clones also dispersed in a hurry, heading towards the entire Suqiao has dispersed, and his sight now covers the entire Suqiao. There are at least 900 clones patrolling the sky above Suqiao. If there is any movement, it can basically not be hidden from his eyes. At this time, hundreds of clones sent Wu Yu and Lan Huayun over and dispersed to guard Suqiao. The other clones were either in Wudu or scattered around the Bibo Mountains. Wu Yu used his true body and Feng Xiuya and Wu Yu meet each other. These are all you. I can't even tell which one is the real you. Wu Yu said with a bitter smile. Not to mention you, I can't tell the difference either. It's really a miracle, Feng Shui said with emotion. In fact, even the Emperor Commander couldn't tell the difference, let alone them. Wu Yu rested for a while and his condition is much better now. Seeing his serious expression, Feng Shui couldn't help but ask, what happened? Is it serious? Wu Yu made it clear. As soon as he said this, the entire Tongtian sword sect seemed to freeze instantly. Everyone looked panicked. Only when they saw Wu Yu could they feel more at ease. This is a battle between ghosts and gods that has never happened before in history. Wu Yu thought for a while and said, I will guard Xuanhuan here. I'm afraid I can't do anything else. I can only look at the other cultivators in Shenzhou. First, I need to rearrange the magic circle of the Tongtian sword section. The million sword formation doesn't have much lethality. You can rest assured that this is the safest place on the east coast with my clones in charge. And in the whole of Suchao, I have 1,000 clones, so the problem is probably not big. Okay, we won't disturb you. If you need any help, just ask, Wu Yu said. Feng Shui thought for a while and said, actually, this matter is so big, our entire sect can also escape to the west, but we will lose the Blue Waves Mountains from now on. Wu Yu shook his head and said, I can't move everyone in Suchao. I can't leave. The mortal fairyland is different from the section. The sect can abandon this place and start from scratch in the future, but these hundreds of millions of mortals have taken root here. Their lives are so fragile that they can only migrate to escape the pursuit of ghost cultivators. Wu Yu said, there is no way to leave. If we are defeated, there will be no safe place in Shenzhou. The only way is to kill the ghost cultivator. He also didn't want the compatriots in Suchao to leave their homes and suddenly flee. It is his mission to protect this place. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 478. /U0026 Wu Yu's clones soon spread all over Dongyu. /U0026 If he had 1,000 pairs of eyes, all the ghost cultivators in Dongyu would be able to see through him. /U0026 Baldhawk. The clones did not have the magical power of the fiery eyes and golden pupils, which could see thousands of miles away. The original body could use this magical power after all, so they could also roughly display one or two. /U0026 NB host cultivators have a sinister aura. When they kill too many people, there are even dark clouds surrounding their heads, and the smell of blood is full, so they are very conspicuous. /U0026 Fortunately, the ghost cultivators who arrived in Dongyu first were basically not very strong. Wu Yu searched the entire Dongyu in a carpet-like manner, and the strongest one he killed was the 8th level of the Golden Core. /U0026 Been less than a day, all the ghost cultivators in Dongyu had been slaughtered by Wu Yu, which curbed the trend of casualties among mortals. /U0026 Compared with the several immortal kingdoms nearby, the damage to Dongyu was so small that it could be ignored. /U0026 Wu Yu couldn't save so many people. Dongyu alone was his limit. No matter how big the territory was, he couldn't split himself up. /U0026 Besides, even if all the ghost cultivators in Dongyu were killed, there would still be ghost cultivators lurking from the surrounding borders. Without saying a word, they would go crazy and kill people. Among them, the most newly appeared ghost cultivators were in the eastern coastal areas of Dongyu. /U0026 These ghost cultivators had just landed from the islands in the East China Sea. They had not yet slaughtered the people of Shenzhou, but they were not to be forgiven. Wu Yu arranged hundreds of clones here to form a line of defense, and killed the ghost cultivators flying from the vast expanse on the spot. /U0026 banned his original body was setting up formations in the Tongtian sword sect. /U0026 Blue Bin left him the Dragon God Ancient formation, which was also the Dragon God Ancient formation that helped Wu Yu break through the second level of the Purple Mansion. /U0026 studied the Dragon God Ancient formation carefully for a year, and now his attainments in formations are the best among his peers. He even has some experience with the most difficult heaven and earth formation. /U0026 Bit is okay for Feng Shui and his men to control the million sword formation, but if they encounter a stronger opponent, even a Purple Mansion Kanghai realm can easily break it. /U0026 Ben order to better help his sister, master, and fellow disciples, Wu Yu decided to add another heaven and earth formation to the Million Sword formation within the range of the Baibo Mountains. \U0026 Enphthes formation comes from the Dragon God Ancient formation. \U0026 Enp with Feng Shui's strength, it is completely incapable of driving such a formation, and Wu Yu's clone must be here. \U0026 Enp after selecting, Wu Yu chose the Nine Dragons Ascension formation that he was most familiar with and had tested many times. \U0026 Enphthes Nine Dragons Ascension formation is a top-level heaven and earth formation. Although it is a copy of the formation, its power is terrifying. After all, it is the formation of the fairy beast Shenlong. Only 10 clones of Wu Yu are needed to sit in charge, and even if the Shushan Sword Saint comes, they can hold on for a quarter of an hour. If you are below the level of Sword Saint or General, you have to bombard it. \U0026 N Basically, if the Nine Dragons Ascension formation is successfully arranged, there is no need to worry about the security crisis of Tongtian Sword Sect. \U0026 N In addition, Wu Yu is also planning to arrange a Clouds and Skies formation on the basis of the Nine Dragons Ascension formation. The Clouds and Skies formation will attract clouds and mist to hide the Bibo Mountains. In this way, ordinary ghost cultivators, as long as their cultivation level is not higher than Wu Yu, basically can't even find this place. \U0026 N bit is indeed more complicated to arrange the Nine Dragons Ascension formation, which requires many rare materials. Fortunately, Luo Bin left enough corresponding materials for himself. Wu Yu first drew magic arrays on many treasures one by one and placed them in specific locations in the Bibo Mountains. He had a clone to help, so the process was very fast. In less than a quarter of an hour, magic arrays were drawn on the main materials and they were all placed in the Bibo Mountains. \U0026 N These materials add up to thousands of kinds, and Wu Yu has already drawn thousands of arrays. However, these arrays are all part of the Nine Dragon Ascension array. After the preparation is completed, the array needs to be integrated. The integration of the array is the most critical link. Only when the integration is successful, the arrays on all the materials can be integrated into one, and it can be truly successful. \U0026 N There are many modifications required later. \U0026 NB The ancient dragon array must be arranged by the dragon to achieve twice the result with half the effort, but I get half the result with twice the effort. \U0026 N Baldhawk This is the case, it is just a little tiring. In fact, the effect of the array he drew and copied is not worse than that arranged by the dragon. \U0026 N Ban's such practice has also made important progress in his own enlightenment. \U0026 N Ben The ancient dragon array, there are more than 100 dragon elders who have left their understanding of this array. If you select and absorb the essence of it, it is indeed a learning. This consumes a lot of brain power. Such a high concentration and a process that cannot make any mistakes makes Wu Yu nervous. This is even more difficult than practicing. \U0026 N However, Wu Yu succeeded in the end. \U0026 N After all, the crisis brought by the ghost cultivators from the East Sea was so great that he could not help but try his best, even risking his life. More and more ghost cultivators arrived in recent days, and his clones had killed thousands of ghost cultivators. Wu Yu had not been stained with so much blood for a long time, but he did not regret it at all. \U0026 N Those ghost cultivators, noisy and laughing, rushed to Dongsheng Shenzhou. They came so anxiously, which one of them was not a vicious criminal? \U0026 N Nine Dragon Ascension array was completed. The 9 dragon statues were the base of the array, and each of them had a clone of Wu Yu standing on it. His clone sat cross-legged on it, ready to activate the array at any time. \U0026 Nth entire Green Wave mountain range was faintly like a flying dragon. At night, the dragon's roar could even be heard faintly, spreading all over the fields. This domineering voice made the disciples of Tongtian feel particularly calm. /U0026 On this basis, Wu Yu set up another Yungxiao maze, and another clone sat in charge, a total of 10 clones, sitting in 2 arrays. From then on, unless a ghost cultivator of the Shushan Sword Saint level appeared, the threat was basically not great. /U0026NB In fact, if you just activate the array and don't need complicated control, maybe your original body can be farther away, Ming Long said. /U0026 Wu Yu discovered that the farther the clone was from himself, the worse his control over the clone was. If it was too far away, he would even lose the perception of the clone. Once this happened, the clone could only stand there. If it was not so far away, Wu Yu could also do some simple control, such as sitting in the array and activating the array with the purple mansion energy, which would not be so complicated. /U0026 To fight against ghost cultivators, patrol everywhere, and fight, this requires precise control. Wu Yu can only do this if the clone does not leave Dongyu Wu state. /U0026 If he only activates the clone to sit in the magic circle, he can probably go 1 or 2 countries further, or even go to the waters near the East China Sea. /U0026 If I really have to leave, then let the brothers from Kishan camp come to help. After all, it is not a problem to gather 6 or 7 purple mansion Kanghai realm in Kishan camp. /U0026 2 arrays have just succeeded. /U0026 Wu Yu has a great grasp of this magic circle, so the main body does not need to stay in Tongtian sword section. His main body joins in the interception and killing of ghost cultivators, especially in the area near the East China Sea. /U0026 Now, the battle between ghost cultivators and Shenzhou cultivators has been carried out vigorously. It is said that all major sects have sent people to intercept ghost cultivators everywhere on the East China Sea. Even among the people, there are many cultivators from small sects who are indignant and go to the East China Sea to kill the enemy in order to protect Shenzhou. This is a war of the entire cultivation world, so not many people can stay out of it. /U0026 Bevan Dongyu Wukuo had many people from the sects enter. When they found that the famous Wu Yu was in charge, they left in a hurry to support other places. /U0026 It is said that the truly powerful ghost cultivators have not appeared yet. Most of the ghost cultivators want to take advantage of the chaos to divide Dongsheng Shenzhou. At present, they are only small characters who attack mortals and small sects. /U0026 Bone Day, Wu Yu's 2 clones patrolled the eastern coast of Dongguo. To the east of his feet was the vast sea, with rolling waves, blue sky and white clouds, which looked very beautiful. /U0026 But at this time, a grey bone warship broke through the waves in the far east. Behind this bone warship, a long trail of blood on the sea surface was pulled out, and the ground was full of sea fish cut into pieces, and even the bodies of mortals were mixed in them. /U0026 On the huge, eerie white bone warship, there was actually singing and dancing. The women's laughter and flirting were very touching. The white bone warship was hung with colorful streamers. Although it was a white bone, it was dressed up as a flower boat, and there were many beautiful women on it. /U0026 Wu Yu's 2 clones narrowed their eyes and looked carefully. The white bone warship appeared in front of them in the blink of an eye. Sure enough, there were dozens of women in revealing clothes on it. Most of them were only wrapped in some ribbons, revealing large areas of snow-white jade skin. Their faces were heavily made up. They were all seductive beauties, so charming that ordinary men could hardly breathe. /U0026 Among the group of beautiful women, there is a white bone chair. The white bones are carved from the bones of a demon beast. It is very gloomy and cold. On it sits a skinny old man. The old man is short, a head shorter than these beauties. He looks very pale and skinny, but his expression is cold and his eyes are vicious. Even if he is laughing at this time, it is still very creepy. Although his legs are short, there are two plump women sitting on them. The old man is touching the two women, causing the women to laugh and scold. The scene is very lively. /U0026NB Daezu, Shenzhou has arrived. A beautiful girl smiled charmingly, swaying her waist and walked forward, kneeling down at the old man's crotch, her eyes flashing. /U0026NB Have you arrived? The old man pushed the two beauties on his legs to the ground and stood up. The woman who was pushed down was not angry, but felt proud. She got up and immediately stuck to the old man. /U0026NB It's time, my dearest ones, to start a killing spree. With the Ghost Emperor leading us this time, don't be polite to me. I've wanted to go to Shenzhou for a long time and use the joyful of our Elysian Dao sect to serve these hypocritical female practitioners in Shenzhou. /U0026NB After saying that, he left. /U0026NB The bone warship, the women also left. /U0026N Buntle They saw two Wuya standing on the shore. /U003xent /U003C/Sente. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 479. Chapter 476 Yin Yang Life Calling Ring. After discovering the bone warship, Wu Yu's original body and other clones were rushing over quickly. His two clones also sacrificed their super spiritual magic tools and looked expressionlessly at the strongest Gle Dao Ziu among them. This Gle Dao sect was actually composed of a Gle Dao Ziu and dozens of beautiful concubines with good cultivation. Those delicate beauties were close to the realm of Purple Mansion Kanghai. This was the strongest group of ghost cultivators Wu Yu had encountered since he had been guarding Dongwu. If he was not there, and let them board Dongwu, absolutely no one could stop them. Even the 9-dragon ascension formation guarded by 10 clones might not be able to hold on. Sure enough, the strong ghost cultivators are gradually coming. I just don't know how many more vicious ghost cultivators there are after this Gle Dao Ziu. Wu Yu's two clones met his Gle Dao Ziu's eyes. This Gle Dao Ziu was the strongest ghost cultivator Wu Yu had seen so far. The bloody smell, corpse souls, resentment, and ghostly aura on his body can only be formed by killing countless people. The so-called Gle Dao Ziu must be a devil on the East China Sea. A cultivator? And a clone, Gle Dao Ziu laughed dumbly. He didn't expect to meet a cultivator just after coming to Shenzhou. However, he thought one was the real body and the other was the clone. The bone warship stopped at the seaside. The Gle Dao Ziu led a group of beautiful girls in revealing clothes to confront Wu Yu's clone. The Gle Dao Ziu looked at Wu Yu with great interest and said, "Which sect are you from in Shenzhou? Do you know who I am?" "In my eyes, you are just a dead man." Wu Yu confirmed that the two clones were no match for Gle Dao Ziu, so the real body was on its way. It is also a good thing to delay some time. Hearing this, Gle Dao Ziu laughed loudly, and the beautiful girl beside him also laughed so hard that her body shook. Such beautiful women, all leaning on the ugly Gle Dao Ziu, seemed to be a bit of a waste of natural gifts. I told you a long time ago that the biggest problem of the Taoists in Shenzhou is that they love to brag. They are all serious, but their hearts are full of dirty things. Maybe this kid is thinking about killing me and then occupying you little beauties. Gle Dao Ziu laughed. Dao Ziu is so bad, the women complained. Have the main forces of the ghost cultivators arrived? Those cats and dogs before were too easy to deal with. Today, someone with some ability finally appeared, Wu Yu said lightly, interrupting Gle Dao Ziu's laughter. What main force? Our ghost cultivators are out in full force, and it's just around the corner to capture Dongsheng Shenzhou. They are all the main force. Now, we just have to wait for the Ghost Emperor to completely exterminate your Shenzhou strongmen. Once the Shenzhou strongmen die, No one can stop our ghost cultivators, Gle Deozio said proudly. Decapitation operation, for the cultivation world, this is indeed very effective, but it requires the strength of the ghost emperor to be strong enough. Wu Yu doesn't believe that people like Yanhuang City Lord will be defeated so easily. Beautiful ladies, watch carefully. The ancestor will start with this cultivator today. I'm afraid he has a lot of treasures on him. All of them belong to you, okay? Wu Yu's clone is only the second level of Zifukanghai realm, which is several realms lower than that of Gle Deoziu. Gle Deoziu certainly doesn't care much. As he said, he sacrificed a ring in the eyes of the beautiful ladies who admired him. The wronged soul was half black and half white, yin and yang merged, and there were many magic arrays on it, and the magic arrays contained a lot of bloody tastes. Such a magical weapon, if used in the mortal fairyland, would probably be a harvesting machine for living beings. The Gle Deoziu attacked very quickly, and the yin-yang life ring fell on the heads of Wu Yu's two clones in an instant. The soul-shaking technique of the annihilating beast, the two clones attacked at the same time, each punching out an invisible fist in tension, which turned into an invisible giant beast, breaking through the waves and biting towards the Gle Deoziu. When the Gle Deoziu saw the invisible giant beast rushing towards him, his expression changed, knowing that this was a kind of heaven and earth mysterious technique that could shock the soul, so he flew away in a hurry. He dodged it, but the two beautiful girls behind him were not so lucky. They were directly hit by the soul-shaking technique of the annihilating beast. Their eyelids turned upside down and they fell to the ground, losing their lives. Although these women are beautiful, they are also people of the Gle Deo section. Their hands are stained with too much blood. Now they come to capture Shenzhou, and they deserve to die. Seeing the two beauties die in battle, Gle Deoziu was furious. Now the other beauties were also fleeing in panic. He lost all face and was shaking with anger. He manipulated the yin-yang life ring for a while. The yin-yang life ring suddenly fell, and a dazzling beam of light shot out of it, which instantly submerged Wu Yu's two clones. In the light column, the wronged souls screamed and rotated around the light column. For a while, the clones with weaker resistance were directly shattered and turned into hard-to-find golden monkey hair, which left the light column and disappeared quickly. Dead completely, Gle Deoziu was stunned. He didn't expect Wu Yu's defense to be so weak. The attack of the Annihilation Beast's soul-shaking technique just now really shocked him. It was rare for the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm to show an attack that made him feel threatened. You know, he, Gle Deoziu, has been practicing Taoism for nearly 300 years and has reached the 7th level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. He is also a big shot in the 4 islands of Dongyang. Although he killed Wu Yu, he still felt distressed at the loss of 2 beautiful girls. The most important thing was that he lost face, which made him very manic. After returning to the bone warship, he angrily said, "Damn cultivators, how dare they kill my Gle Deoziu's people? I will let the souls of millions of mortals pay tribute to their lives." The great Deo ancestor of bliss, the hero of eternity, the beauties turned back from their panic and regained their passion and excitement after hearing the words of the great Deo ancestor of bliss. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 480. After the Taoist master Gle, Wu Yu killed batches of ghost cultivators on the east coast of Dongguo. The ghost cultivators who came across the ocean of 100,000 miles were excited and passionate when they saw that they had arrived at Dongsheng Shenzhou. They encountered Wu Yu and never touched the fertile land of Shenzhou. Their bodies sank into the river and sea forever. There were too many ghost cultivators, and Wu Yu was numb to killing. The ghost cultivators he met were still without exception. There was no good person in the whole group, which was rare. Of course, if they had good intentions, they would not cross the ocean to invade and occupy Dongsheng Shenzhou. If this goes on, I don't know when it will end. Dongguo is not the main battlefield, but there are also a large number of cultivators and ghost cultivators colliding here these days. Even if Wu Yu has thousands of clones, he can't stop all the ghost cultivators. Occasionally, one or two fish that slip through the net will also cause great casualties to mortals. The cultivators from all over Shenzhou are determined to kill the ghost cultivators. Whenever they encounter them, they will fight to the death. Therefore, if they don't pay attention to the life and death of mortals, once they fight, they will often affect mortals. Now the east of the entire Dongsheng Shenzhou is completely in chaos. A large number of ghost cultivators have landed on Shenzhou, infiltrated, and even hid, preparing for a long-term battle and dealing with the cultivators. Ghost cultivators are better at killing people in secret, and are very good at some insidious means. They are vicious and cruel, so the cultivators suffer more. Fortunately, in terms of overall number, there are more cultivators in Shenzhou than ghost cultivators. Otherwise, if ghost cultivators infiltrate deep into Shenzhou, I don't know how many casualties there will be. Anyway, except for Dongguo, most of the dozens of immortal kingdoms nearby are littered with corpses, and many mortals are killed and injured, and wives and children are separated everywhere. When the cultivators walk among them and see such a tragic situation, they all hate ghost cultivators even more. After all, even if they are demons, they are not as vicious as ghost cultivators. In the world of ghost cultivators, there is only the rule of the jungle, and there is no moral constraint. Wu Yu has been to several neighboring countries and killed many ghost cultivators, but there are so many ghost cultivators, like locusts passing through. It is really too difficult for one person to intercept all of them. Seeing the scene of corpses everywhere, Wu Yu was extremely angry, and the hatred in his chest was surging. The life of mortals is short. In less than 100 years, Wu Yu was also a mortal, so he knew their difficulties. Short life, but with all kinds of ambitions, even without extraordinary power and talent, most people will realize their own value in various ways. Some people study hard and strive to govern the country. Some people practice martial arts to defend their country. Some people learn a craft to benefit the world. But in the eyes of ghost cultivators, mortals are as fragile as ants. They not only kill people, but also take their souls, even eyes, hearts, etc. That bloody scene made even Wu Yu's scalp numb. The so-called blood feud is probably this feeling. The world of cultivation is bloody and tragic, Wu Yu understands this. But cultivators generally stick to the righteous path in their hearts, and have a clear mind, while those who cultivate ghosts and gods do not have these. Everything is respected by strength, and all the ways that can make ghost cultivators stronger are used by ghost cultivators. How can the filth of the ghost cultivators in the East China Sea be worthy of tarnishing the magnificence of Shenzhou? Wu Yu was furious and did his best. Thousands of clones fought and searched everywhere. All ghost cultivators who met him were swiftly killed, leaving no one alive. I can't leave Dongguo, otherwise I can help Shenzhou repel more ghost cultivators. Now he is in a conflicted mood. Because as long as he leaves, there is no doubt that Dongyu will become the next place where corpses are everywhere, but because he can't leave, he can only stay here. With his character, he should have gone out with the army, fought everywhere, and hit the ghost cultivators head on. He wants to kill the enemy, but there are these most important people behind him who have to be protected. Wu Yu didn't want to hurt Wu Yu, Feng Shui, Su Yanli and others. The ghost cultivators in the East China Sea are really numerous, like rats, they can't be killed or killed. Wu Yu stood on the green waves of mountains, and the green waves of mountains under his feet were hidden in the clouds and mist, and ordinary cultivators could hardly find them. As long as his clones were in charge, this place was absolutely safe. His eyes were deep and full of anger. In front of him, above the sky in the direction of the East China Sea, grey clouds rolled, countless dark clouds swept, ghosts howled, and the bloody and vicious aura of the ghost cultivators had condensed together and began to move towards the sky above Dongsheng Shenzhou. They were going to turn Dongsheng Shenzhou into a dead place like the four islands of Dongyang. Wu Yu. Just as Wu Yu continued to garrison Dongguo with thousands of clones, suddenly someone in the west entered the border of Dongguo. Wu Yu had a clone here. After hearing the call, the clone flew over on a sword. After breaking through the clouds, he saw a black-haired man with a pair of thick black wings on his back, flying over. The black-haired man was tall and slender, very handsome, with a fair and gentle face and black eyes like ink. I didn't expect to meet him here. It was Zhu Ying saw him at a glance, and flew forward, looked at Wu Yu carefully, and said, "This is your clone, right? I heard that you can now differentiate into thousands of clones. It's incredible. When we parted, I didn't expect you to be able to reach such a level today. Congratulations." Wu Yu was indeed a clone, and his clone also had a small part of the ability of the fiery eye. After a closer look, he found that Zhu Ying had reached the 6th level of the Zifu-Kanghai realm, which immediately surprised him. After all, this realm was higher than Nangongwei and Baishan Mo. When Wu Yu first met him, he was just Jin Dan. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. I am a demon. I am different from you ascetics. As I grow older, my realm will increase. In addition, in recent days, my father has arranged a lot of hard training and experience for me. After passing it with difficulty, I am now where I am now. Realm, but compared with your progress, it is still a bit lacking. Zhu Ying said with emotion. Since he is here, he should be looking for himself. It's right to think about it. He is the emperor among demons, the son of the infant emperor. The infant emperor has the top demon bloodline and endless resources. With Zhu Ying, it is not difficult for Zhu Ying to reach the level of Baishan Mona over there. There might be a better place for training than the Shushan Samsara cave. Wu Yu's avatar took him to the Bibo Mountains. On the way, Zhu Ying looked solemn and said, "I heard that you were expelled from Shushan after I left. What will happen to you later in the Yanhuang Emperor City? I've also asked about it." Wu Yu, I don't know anything about my father killing the Taoist monk Yang Sword Immortal, so I'm sorry. Wu Yu shook his head and said, "You have no control over this matter. It has nothing to do with you." He was still full of apologies and said, "Because of me, you broke up with Nangongwei and even caused so many things later. I knew that I felt really guilty after that, but I also admire you very much. Now that the matter has passed, no matter what I do, it seems to be of no use. I can only tell you that my Zhu Yinghui is worthy of your emphasis and insistence on brotherhood. I came here this time to tell you that if you need help in the future, I, Zhu Ying, will need to contribute. In this place, no matter what happens, Zhu Ying is absolutely bound to do it." He looked serious and said seriously. Seeing how serious he was, Wu Yu couldn't help but laugh and said, "Speaking of which, this matter has nothing to do with you, it's just that Wei and I don't have this fate. We have incompatible temperaments. Not only this matter, if you force yourself to get along, there will always be more conflicts in the future." Zhu Ying also laughed dumbly. However, he still decided that Wu Yu was a person worthy of close friendship. Zhu Ying admires all his deeds. "By the way, how did you find this place?" Wu Yu asked. Zhu Ying said, "I actually know about your 3-year agreement. When you fought Baishan Mo, I was at the foot of Shushan Mountain, but I couldn't go up. Later, something happened here in the East China Sea, and you walked very fast. I found out where you were going. I just arrived here from Shushan Immortal section. I have been in seclusion before, and I just happened to come out before your 3-year appointment. However, it seems that I can't help you. Now I hear that the ghost cultivators from the East China Sea are coming to disturb Shenzhou. I thought you needed help, so I came here uninvited. Maybe Wu Yu was exiled and he felt a debt in his heart. But it can be seen that he values this loyalty very much. He has almost no friends in the endless sea of demons. Although he and Wu Yu are in different camps, the way they cultivate is indeed similar. At this time, Wu Yu's clone had brought him to the Bibo Mountains. Wu Yu's body had been waiting here for a long time. After arriving, the clone left and returned to its own position. Miracle, there is no difference between the clone and the main body. Zhuiying clicked his tongue in surprise. Zhuiying said that he was here to help him, but after all, he was a demon. Wu Yu believed him, but he still wanted to ask clearly. He said, Zhuiying, I won't beat around the bush and ask directly. Regarding ghost cultivation, how do the demon clan view the invasion of Shenzhou? I believe that Yanhuang City Lord and others will be worried about a problem, that is, when they are fighting to the death with the ghost cultivators of the East China Sea, the demons are sneaking up from behind, which will definitely cause tragic damage to the cultivators of Shenzhou. Zhuiying was silent for a moment and said cautiously, I will tell you everything I know. First of all, regarding this matter, the demons are mainly divided into two factions. One of the factions is headed by Xuanhuan. People from the Palace of Hell have contacted him. If we want to divide the divine continent with him, the Xuanhuan is of course willing to create this great cause and clean up the cultivators of the divine continent. The other faction is dominated by my father, the infant emperor. My father thinks that the dead lord must be a pervert. If the demon really helps the ghost cultivator sweep away the divine continent, then the demon will definitely become the next target of the undead lord. With the rumored terror of the undead lord, the demon will definitely not be able to stop him. For the time being, the demons support Zhu. They thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which made my father conservative and not confident in himself. I see. You can tell the Yanhuang City Lord about this detail. He asked again, what do you think? Zhuiying said, I can't control the demon clan. I hope they can just wait and see what happens and don't interfere yet. But on my own terms, I am willing to help you and repel the ghost cultivators. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 481. It is enough to have Zhuiying. He cannot represent the demon clan, but he can represent himself. Wu Yu naturally knows that this friend is worth making. Among the peers, those who have reached Wu Yu's level, Shushan used to have Nangong Wei and Baishan Mo, and now only Nangong Wei is left. There are 4 geniuses in Yanhuang Emperor City. Now Qin Fuhui has become Tianhai Yufuhui and has transformed into the daughter of the 8th Yanhuang Emperor. The remaining 3 are not very compatible with Wu Yu. As for the geniuses of Shangyu and Dao sect and Tianyi clan, they have not met yet. Therefore, Zhuiying is the only friend of Wu Yu who is about the same age. Others include Shenzhenjiao who is like an elder brother, and Shenzhenyu who is like a sister. There are also many brothers and sisters in Tongtian sword sect and brothers and sisters in Kishan camp. These people are all people who are particularly close to him. Of course, there is another one, that is Luo Bin. In the of the devouring demon mansion, Wu Yu is even more familiar with her than Zhuiying. Unfortunately, he is too far away from Luo Bin. I don't know when he can reach Luo Bin's level and meet her again. Zhuiying came out of retreat and came to help. Just this point made Wu Yu regard him as his best friend. The two chatted for a while, and the topic shifted to dealing with ghost cultivators. Wu Yu said, we can't intervene in the battle between the level of the Lord of the Dead and the 8 Hells and the powerful men of Shenzhou. However, it would be better if we could help a little. But I can't leave Dongguo alone, so I can only kill enemies in Dongguo. What I can do for Shenzhou is a bit small. This is his helplessness. He can't leave here. If he is too far away, his clone will be completely out of control, even the operation of the magic circle. Zhu thought for a while and asked, if you can leave here, what are your plans? Wu Yu said, I don't think I can help on the front battlefield, but I think the ghost cultivators are out in full force, and the 4 islands of Dongyang behind must be very empty. Maybe if I make a fuss there, the ghost cultivators who came from afar will be restrained and wary. After all, they all have a foundation, such as the Yanhuang Palace. If there is no master sitting in the Yanhuang Palace, I will go to the Yanhuang Palace to make trouble. If the commotion is big, it can also affect the 8 Yanhuangs. That's a good idea, Zhu nodded. The method is good and there is a possibility of realization. The key is to maximize your ability. The problem is that Wu Yu can't leave Dongguo, let alone go to the distant 4 islands of Dongyang. It is a death world of pure ghost cultivators. Suddenly, Zhu said with a little surprise, I have a method, I don't know if it is feasible. Please speak. Zhu said, my strength has improved now, and I can communicate with the Bashan. The Bashan was taught by my father and always stays near me. If I am in danger, it will appear. The Bashan has many descendants, and they are as low in intelligence as it is, but the advantage is that they are obedient and never mess around. If the Bashan lets his descendants stay here to protect the mortals in your country, those little snakes will definitely follow the procedures and strictly implement them. They also have purple mansion energy and can operate the magic circle for you in this section. The only trouble is that they are demons after all, and they can't speak and can't communicate with others. If the cultivators of your Shenzhou see demons here, will they conflict with them or even fight? If their lives are threatened, I'm not sure if the little snakes will resist. After all, they are like wild beasts. If it is really as Zhu said, this is indeed a good idea. The key is that his worry is also reasonable. There are many cultivators in Shenzhou, and they don't know the descendants of the Bashi. They come here to kill the ghost cultivators. Suddenly they find that there are so many demons stationed here. They will definitely take action. Maybe they will think that the demons and ghost cultivators are in the same group. Wu Yu thought for a moment and said, it can be done this way. I will take a look at these little snakes first. If possible, I can ask the Emperor. If the Emperor notifies the special situation here, I believe this conflict can be avoided. Among the cultivators, it is still very fast to pass a message. The key is that the descendants of the Bashi are very strong, so as long as they can't take the initiative to attack others, the cultivators have some organization, it is estimated that it can be avoided. Besides, Feng Xiya and the others can also explain it on their behalf. Zhu tried to summon the Bashi. Speaking of the Bashi, Wu Yu was scared before. Now he is stronger, so when he sees the dark figure in the sky and the huge, green eyes, he is much calmer than before. After all, he had seen stronger beings, such as the Lord of Yanhuang City. Zhu started to talk to the Bashi. He made a hissing sound like a snake, which most people could not make. It was probably that he learned it specifically to communicate with the Bashi. Although the Bashi was low in intelligence and even had a rough temperament, the advantage was that it was very obedient. When Zhu was talking to him, he suddenly opened his mouth, and suddenly, thousands of small snakes came out of the Bashi's mouth. Compared with the Bashi, those were small snakes, but after falling to the ground, these demon snakes were huge monsters. They surrounded Wu Yu, feeling a little uneasy and irritable. Looking around, there were thousands of big snakes surrounding the Green Mountains. They all looked very fierce, and there were all kinds of big snakes. It was not until the Bashan screamed that the big snakes on the ground quieted down. It seemed that they heard the order. They turned into human forms one by one. After all, they were descendants of Bashan, and most of them were in the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. If such a team were to be dispersed, it would probably catch up with Wu Yu's clone. Brother, after several big snakes turned into monsters, they seemed to have higher intelligence than Bashan. They looked a little confused, but after finding Zhuing, they actually called him. Bashan was born with the infant emperor and was considered the infant emperor's brother. It was not a problem for these descendants of Bashan to call Zhuing brother. Before we come back, the 10 of you will operate this magic circle. No matter who it is, you can't let them break through this magic circle. The rest of you, kill all the ghost cultivators who enter this mortal fairyland. Do you understand? Understood, the big snakes said in unison. Wu Yu observed for a long time, and he found that just as Zhuing said, these big snakes were very determined to carry out their tasks, obeyed orders very well, and respected Zhuing very much. Zhuing had just finished speaking, and most of them had already dispersed. They had the keen sense of snakes, and they were also very powerful in finding ghost cultivators. The remaining 10 with the highest spiritual intelligence were all at the 5th and 6th levels of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. The Purple Mansion Yuanli was very abundant, and they could fully support the 9 Dragon Ascension formation. Wu Yu tried to communicate with them and found that they were not stupid. One of them even said, "Brother Wu, don't worry. If there are cultivators coming, I will tell them our identities and missions, and I will never conflict with them." In this way, Wu Yu felt much more at ease, and Zhuing was always more reliable in doing things. If he was not sure, he would not mess around. Protecting Wu Yu and the others was very important to Wu Yu, but Shenzhou was in great danger, and he felt that he should contribute more. Now that there were people helping to guard the rear, he could indeed go to battle with confidence, and it was also an explanation to the many mortals who were affected. He passed the situation of the demon guarding to the emperor with the tail talisman, and soon got the emperor's response. He said, "I sent the Kishan camp to assist in guarding your mortal fairyland. If other cultivators come to Dongguo, the soldiers of the Kishan camp will have an explanation. As for your desire to go to the 4 islands of Dongyang, I must tell you that even if the 4 islands of Dongyang are empty, it is still quite dangerous, but you are also likely to make changes that change the situation of the war. The decision is in your hands. No matter what, remember, people need to be immortal to have the possibility of becoming immortals." The emperor was more thoughtful than Wu Yu thought. Once the Kishan camp came, they combined with the big snakes, so that the cultivators of Shenzhou would not be injured by mistake, and the Yanhuang immortal army of the Kishan camp would be better explained. Zhuing told the snakes that there would be Kishaning to assist. At that time, they only needed to report Kishaning and the demon snakes would let them in safely. Things here were finally stable. But the last few words of Emperor Marshall made Wu Yu think carefully. It is dangerous, but if it is not dangerous, how can it be a challenge? On the front battlefield, I can't play a big role. I have to rely on the city lord, Emperor Marshall, and others. Only in the rear of the enemy can I make a little contribution and avenge the people of Shenzhou. Finally, he made a decision. Moreover, the biggest advantage this time is that Zhuing is following. Zhuing's combat power is estimated to be similar to his, but Zhuing has Bashi following him, and Zhuing can communicate with Bashi for the time being. So when Zhuing is in danger, Bashi can obviously help him by the way. This life-threatening situation is estimated not to be so serious. After thinking it over, Wu Yu summoned all the clones and gathered on the east coast. The clones returned to his body one by one. In the end, only he and Zhuing were left on the east coast. "Let's go." The 2 of them left as soon as they said they would, and jumped into the deep sea. It would be a bit ostentatious to rush to the 4 islands of Dongyang on the sea. Since they were going to sneak into the enemy's rear, they had to be cautious, so they first sneaked to the deep sea bed, and then went to the direction of the 4 islands of Dongyang. The deep sea bed was dark, the pressure was huge, and even dead silent. The 2 of them said nothing and hurried along the way quietly. In a blink of an eye, a day passed. At this time, they could even clearly feel that there were a group of ghost cultivators above their heads, screaming and excitedly passing over their heads. Wu Yu wanted to rush up to intercept them. But, that would expose the action. Go deep into the tiger's den, you must be extremely cautious, even if there is a Bashan to protect you, you must not mess around. Gradually, he found that there were more and more ghost cultivators above his head. Today there are 2 chapters in total, don't wait at night.